Okay. All right, everyone. Welcome back to our fifth episode of the Ibrahim and Kai podcast. And today we're talking about creative ruts. And let's jump right into the topic. I guess so. If you are a creative who produces something, chances are that you've witnessed some sort of a creative rut. And so you kind of like wake up in the morning and not feeling inspired or motivated to do anything, and like over the time your work doesn't feel thrilling and exciting to you, and you don't like the work that you create. And so um, I feel like everybody has experienced some sort of a creative rut from us. And yeah, like Kai, what do you think about like have you ever been stuck in a creative rut, and have you ever felt that, have you ever had that feeling, and what has it been like for you um, as a creative?
I I had it before, but I heard it from a guy called Seth Godin. I don't know if you heard of him. Seth
Yeah,
Godin.
yeah,
He
yeah.
once said that the reason why he explained something like you shouldn't stop. Like for example, if you're a writer or something like that, and you feel like you it's called
Mm-hmm.
writer's blocking or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
There's such a
Writer's
word, right?
block. Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
said the way to deal with it is you should just keep writing, even if it's bad
Mm-hmm.
idea. You should just keep pushing things out, and some of those idea might be bad initially, and then if you just take it and you let it sit a bit, it will develop into something better. And I heard of
Mm-hmm.
this idea very early on, even like when I was a student. My teacher told me about this. So I actually, whenever I have anything like this, I just keep trying out new things. For example, um, let's say I'm doing a photo shoot and I didn't like the photo, but I wouldn't just stop doing it. I would just keep
Mm-hmm.
experimenting new things even if I didn't like it. And eventually you will come up with something that you like. So my
Mm-hmm.
way of dealing it is I don't stop. I wouldn't stop. I just
Yeah.
keep doing it.
I've also experienced some sort of creative rut in the past, and I feel like writer's block and being creatively blocked is kind of the same thing, because as a creative, we all go through the same journey, the same
Yeah.
kind of ups and downs. And so I've also heard it from Seth Godin. He talked about it, and he said that actually you're supposed to keep going. And I think partly being creatively blocked, or being in a rut creatively, comes from this idea of perfectionism, I guess, partly because we kind of want to make something perfect, and we are trying to produce something and create something. um, if it doesn't live up to the standards of the work that we used to create, we usually kind of feel down and feel sad about it and decide not to
Mm.
create. And I think that perfectionism is one of the main reasons as to why we feel like not we don't feel like creating anything, because we
Mm.
don't want to create something that's imperfect. And I feel
Mm.
like it's also a myth. It's kind of a cycle, because we know that the work we're gonna create, it's never gonna be perfect, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, so but we still kind of in a way strive for perfectionism, but in a way bad perfectionism stops us from creating uh, any kind of work, and we kind of get stuck in this cycle, right? And yeah, I've experienced this in the past. And you wake up like in the morning, and you don't feel like you want to do anything, right? You just want to sit and watch YouTube, or uh,
So you would just stop doing
yeah,
anything.
yeah, 100%. I would just start watching YouTube, spending time on wasting time, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I feel like your case is I when I hear it I feel like it's not exactly like creative rut, but you're kind of like losing motivation in a way.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's not
I
really
don't
like a
know.
block, but it's just like you don't feel like it or what.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of like I'm not getting any ideas, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and at the same time, I don't feel like doing anything,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and yeah, I guess they're both kind of interrelated, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
To me, at least, the way I think about it. Um, And like you said, I guess the only way to counter that is the like to keep creating no matter what how good your work is, or um, I guess how bad you feel about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like even
Yeah.
if you don't like it, you should still do it, because once you stop, literally there's nothing going on. Like you're not getting
Mm-hmm.
anything if you stop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even if it's
Yeah.
something bad, and which I have a lot of cases where like the initial idea was bad, but then
Mm-hmm.
the concept was kind of at the right direction. So I worked on it for like couple of days, couple of weeks, and eventually that bad idea actually turned into something really good.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I really believe in that idea where you just if it's about writing, just keep writing. If it's about doing, you just gotta keep doing. You know, if it's about design, just keep trying. You know, you cannot stop, because once you stop, then there's nothing.
Yeah.
And you
100%.
know, another very good I guess technique is, you know, some people they said that, oh, I get my inspirations from music, from poem, you know, from movies, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people they couldn't understand this concept. But I actually have a very good tech, not exactly a technique. You cannot do it if you just don't know how to do it. It's like let's say you have a topic. Let's say you
Okay.
have to tell a story about let's say you have to tell a sad story. Okay, a bit broad, but
Mm-hmm.
the way you get inspiration from music or poem or movies is like you take any object and you try to use this object and relate to the thing that you want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I think good creativity is when you can relate something that seems to be totally unrelated to what you want to talk about, but you manage to
Yeah.
find a
Yeah.
relation between these two things,
Yeah.
and
It's
eventually
like
it's very creative. Yeah.
yeah, it's like finding connection between two disparate ideas, right? Like
Yeah.
bringing two ideas that are from different fields or different areas, and merging them together to come up with a totally different new idea. And I think also that helps because if you, like, let's say you're creatively blocked, or you're in a creative rut and you don't feel like doing anything, maybe going out and doing something totally different that could help you, like taking a trip, or going somewhere else and looking at something new where you get new ideas and new inspiration from. And so that when you come back to doing what you are doing, then that would give you new ideas and new inspiration as well.
The thing is,
Um,
when you're traveling, sometimes you just happen to see something that, you know, your subconscious just tells you that this is related to what you're looking for. You know, it could
mhm,
just be
mhm.
like a I don't know, you just saw a deer running and hit the tree or something, and you know, you just like you just had a light bulb, and oh man, this is like
Yeah, yeah,
this is what I needed, you know. So you
yeah.
just keep, you gotta have that very strong um, subconscious, I guess. You really need that idea at the back of your mind, and then you
Hmm.
just start looking for random stuff, and then your
Yeah,
subconscious kind of just work for you. I feel like, I don't
yeah,
know if
yeah.
it's the same for you.
Um, to me, as long as I have the idea in my mind,
Yeah.
then when I come back to it later, then like when I come back to doing the thing I used to do, then it would usually come into play, if that makes sense. So I feel like it's just having the idea in mind and
Hmm.
just kind of um, not necessarily consciously thinking about it, but like kind of having it in the back of your mind. Then
Yeah.
maybe if you go on a trip and you see something, then your mind kind of grasps that idea, and then when you come back from that trip and continue working on your project or
Hmm.
whatever you're working on,
Hmm.
then that idea comes into play at that time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's such an
Exactly.
interesting, yeah, yeah. And actually, one of the things that I feel like causes this a creative block is doing the same thing over and over. Because okay, like I agree with Godin, and I agree with you, Kai. Like doing things, keep pushing and to keep going is
Hmm.
a very very good idea to try to overcome that creative rut,
Hmm.
right? To kind of push through the moment,
Yeah.
but also changing what you're doing and experimenting and playing and doing different things
Hmm.
is also one of the things that really contributes into
Definitely. I
yeah,
agree with you.
overcoming that creative idea. So I recall back when I was doing product photography, for instance, in the past, I reached a point, like I said before, where it wasn't challenging for me anymore, and um, I wasn't able to come up with new ideas. Right, I was kind of repeating myself over and over, and that's when I kind of like stopped and uh, hesitated whether to continue or not. Right, and one of the things that helped me go like keep going is to try out new ideas of photography, to go out and do street. For instance, I started doing aerial, and now my interests have changed, but at the same time I was able to overcome that and move into a totally different new genre of photography. For instance, I don't know if that happened to you before, like
The idea, I think what you're saying is kind of like you when you go travel or do something else that is not related to what you're working on, is like you need to pull yourself out of that bubble. You need to be a
uh-huh,
bit more
yeah,
objective, because when you
yes,
even
right,
it's kind of like when you're editing a film or something like that. When you
mm-hmm.
edit for like a week straight 3 days 4 days, and you look at it for too long, your brain just kind of making what you're editing more and more logical. Sometimes
Yes,
it
yeah,
might not be the case, but
yeah,
there's a lot of times where what you're doing is not logical, but your brain tells you it's logical because you've seen it more than anyone else.
mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
what you need to do is you go take a break and come back with the fresh mind, and look at it
yeah,
again.
yeah,
So the faster you can clean your mind, I think the better it is. You just gotta do something that is completely unrelated, so you're more objective. I guess that's the
yeah,
way to deal with it. Yeah.
yeah. Experimenting, playing, and trying out new ideas. I think that's one way to overcome it. Uh, yeah, I mean, like, do you have in mind any experience that you've had while you were doing something specific and you kind of felt like, like I don't feel like doing this anymore. I kind of want to try something new. I kind of want to play around with this idea, and I feel like I'm not able to produce good results anymore. Um, have you ever been in such situations, Kai? Or
Yeah, definitely. But the good thing about, like, for those who don't know, I'm working in like a filmmaking production company. But I think the good thing about working in film, shooting commercials and stuff, is that you always get different type of works. So I
yeah,
honestly,
yeah,
I actually rarely had those kind of situation. There was a time where I've been shooting like promotional video for cities for a bit too long, and at one point I just feel like it's all the same. So
mm-hmm.
a good way to see it is like, again, I just try to find random things and try to relate to what I'm talking about. So like back in the days, I always shoot like wide angle, and then you show the city, you show the cars, the street, everything. But then I saw a very interesting documentary where they shot like ants and insects and stuff, and then I was like, hey, how can I
Mm-hmm.
shoot a city with the micro lens? Is it possible to shoot a
Yeah,
city with a macro lens? So I try to
yeah,
shoot a city in a microscopic way and see if there's anything different about the city that people never seen before. So just try to
mm-hmm.
see things in a different perspective, and it just becomes much more fun. So I just gotta
Yeah.
try new things. And another interesting thing, I guess not a lot of people do this, but memes really inspire me. I love
Oh
memes.
yeah.
Because like,
Okay.
so for some reason, sometimes you see a meme and it's just like a weird guy, maybe he's wearing like a unicorn costume, and then he's doing something,
Yeah.
and then a caption, they just put a caption, and it just somehow becomes so relatable, but it's just so
Yeah. Yeah.
random. And I really like the concept of a meme. It's like you put a caption on this random picture and suddenly you just feel it, and it's just like
It has a
relatable.
totally different meaning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just so interesting, and I find it that's so creative. I don't think
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
see the depth of memes, but it really inspired me a lot. Honestly, it's stupid
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
say, but
Yeah. No, if that's what inspires you, yeah, man. And yeah, I agree with you. I think memes are very creative because you're changing the meaning through this juxtaposition of words and imagery, right?
yeah,
And you're totally giving it a totally different
like you don't see the
vibe.
image the same way after you saw the caption. You know,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
photo was one thing, but after you added this little touch of word in it, and everything's just changed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's. What about you? What kind of situation makes you feel like you, besides product photography, is there
Mm-hmm.
like, I know you do some design as well.
Yeah, honestly, I think so. I feel like to me, I become creatively blocked when I lack challenge. You know, if I'm doing something and it's repetitive and it's not challenging, I'm not being challenging what I'm doing, then that's when I'm like, okay, I can't do good work anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've learned what I do, and I cannot move forward past this. I need to change into something that has a learning curve, and that kind of pushes me cognitively, and like uh, pushes me forward in order to achieve what I'm doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I feel like mostly really down and I'm unable to create. And there has been like times in the past, like especially in school, where the tasks that we were doing were getting repetitive, and especially at the beginning of the pandemic, where I wasn't able to go out and take
Uh-huh.
photos. So, but the way I overcame that is that I started small, if that makes sense. So I would carry my camera and take photos on campus, and
Mm-hmm.
um, do try new things within the small realm that I had,
Mm-hmm.
right? And yeah, that's what I did in order to overcome that. Um, yeah,
So during the pandemic, you guys couldn't go out anytime you wanted, right?
yeah,
In
yeah.
Turkey.
There was, yeah, severe lockdown, and um, there wasn't much experience. And one of the things I feel like that you need as a creative, you need
Mm-hmm.
experience, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're a comedian
Mm-hmm.
and you want to write jokes. You want to
Mm-hmm.
write jokes about situations and things, and events that you have witnessed and people have witnessed that people can relate to. But let's say you're sitting at home as a comedian,
Mm-hmm.
and you cannot necessarily you're not witnessing and you're not seeing new experiences. It's going to be
Yeah.
very hard for you to come up
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
joke,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
To make the audience laugh. And yeah, I feel like experience is a very key word here, because even for us, we need to see things and go on trips and look at new situations and events for us to grasp inspirations from those events that we witness in order
Mm-hmm.
to apply them in our craft and use them in our craft.
I totally agree with you. I think
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes people, you know, they listen to music, watch movies, read books, but when you actually like experience something physically,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the way you absorb the message and everything you saw is completely different from just like reading a book and watching a movie. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
feel the whole thing. So I guess you get more inspired
yeah,
in a way, right? Like when you're
yeah.
experiencing things. You know what? One of the things, I don't know if you watch Maddie Hapoya, the YouTuber.
I do. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he mentioned about this actually. He said one of the things that he missed most during the pandemic is the idea of experiencing thing, because you can actually do most of the things that you need to do at home at this day
Mm-hmm.
and age, but experiencing
Yeah,
thing is something that you just need to go out and do it, and that
yeah.
really affect a
100%.
lot of creators and artists out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of a lot of these inspiration came from experience. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's definitely something important.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the people, yeah, and I feel like one of the mistakes that people make is when they're trying to deal with, when they're trying to deal with this kind of these down days and this creative block, is that they go and solve it with by buying new gear and by buying new equipment,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't necessarily solve it, because what you need is new experience, not necessarily new tools that are not gonna that aren't gonna necessarily like aren't gonna really change your product, that are not necessarily gonna change your quality of work. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have money and you wanna and you don't if you feel like you cannot do anything within the area that you have, like
Mm-hmm.
instead of spending it on a new camera or a new gear,
Mm-hmm.
go like buy a new trip and travel somewhere,
Yeah.
and that's gonna solve your that's gonna give you an experience, and that's gonna give you a um, inspiration for you to lean back on in your work.
And
Um,
one thing that actually my boss, okay, in my company right
yeah.
now, he used to do a thing that I really hate. It's like, we by the way, I work in a, technically it's a motion graphic company, so we work animation, but I'm at the film department, so we
Mm-hmm.
still work on a lot of animation. And this guy,
Okay.
whenever he, he needs inspiration, he always go to this bookshelf, and he start to look at, because he has this huge bookshelf where there's a lot of books about like graphic design, animation, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he start to just go through these books and look at all of these pictures. But the thing is, whenever he's in this like creative block, he always does the same thing. He never does anything different. Like he never do anything different. He always goes to this bookshelf and he start looking at his photos, which
Yeah.
over the years I noticed that the works that they produce, there's a pattern in it. It just kind of look the
Mm-hmm.
same every time, even though the
Mm-hmm.
content is different. So I feel like this is something that I think as creative we have to face, is that every time you go look for inspiration, it might needs to be a different, like, you need to look for inspiration in a different way every time. Because if you always go
Yeah. Yeah.
travel, if you always go read a book, you start to get the pattern, and it will start to get
Yeah.
boring again.
Yeah.
So this is something that I know. This guy, he's already like he's pretty big in my country, but I don't really think it's a, I don't think I have any position to say that, but people do notice that there's a pattern now, and it's getting a
Mm-hmm.
bit boring because everything's the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think finding inspiration from different sources and different fields and different uh, genres is a very good way to overcome creative block.
And the thing is, you gotta love what you do, man. Like people say, oh, I'm not motivated, I don't know what to do, but that means that you're not loving it enough. Really, like, if sometimes you get bored, yeah, but if you really love it, you'll go get back to it, and you just keep looking
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
inspiration.
You're gonna keep pushing.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.